Sale contract. A written agreement for the purchase and sale of real property, setting forth all material terms, conditions, and responsibilities of the buyer and seller. In Arizona, real estate sale contracts must comply with the statute of frauds and are typically executed using standardized Realtor Rs forms. Sale leaseback, a transaction in which an owner sells property and simultaneously leases it back from the buyer. In Arizona, sale leasebacks are often used for business liquidity, tax planning, or capital reinvestment. Sales comparison approach. An appraisal method estimating value by comparing the subject property to similar recently sold properties. This is the most commonly used valuation method for Arizona residential properties. Salesperson. A licensed individual employed by or affiliated with a broker to conduct real estate activities on behalf of clients. Arizona salespersons must work under a designated broker. Scarcity. A measure of supply relative to demand. In Arizona markets, scarcity, such as limited housing inventory, often drives appreciation and competitive bidding. Second mortgage. A loan secured by property that is subordinate to a first mortgage or deed of trust. Arizona homeowners often use second mortgages or home equity loans to access equity. Secondary mortgage market, institutions and investors that buy, sell, insure, or guarantee existing mortgages. Entities such as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae play a major role in Arizona lending liquidity. Section. A 1 square mile area, 640 acres, within a township under the rectangular survey system. Arizona legal descriptions often reference sections. Securities license, authorization to broker securities. Certain real estate investment activities, such as selling REIT interests or syndications, may require a securities license. Security. Collateral pledged for a loan or an investment instrument such as stocks or bonds. Real estate commonly serves as loan security in Arizona transactions. Seller financing. Any transaction where the seller provides financing to the buyer by carrying a note. Seller financing is frequently used in Arizona when traditional financing is unavailable. Seller's market. A market condition where demand exceeds supply, giving sellers stronger negotiating power. Arizona has experienced prolonged seller's market conditions in many regions. Servient tenement, a property burdened by an easement that benefits another property. Owners of servient tenements in Arizona must allow lawful easement use. Severance, the act of removing an item from real property, converting it to personal property. Once severed, the item no longer transfers with the land. Sole proprietorship, a business owned by one individual with no legal separation between owner and business. Sole proprietorships terminate upon the owner's death. Special assessment lien, a lien imposed to secure payment for a specific public improvement benefiting the property. Arizona properties may be subject to special assessments for infrastructure projects. Special exception, a land use that does not comply with zoning, but is permitted due to its public benefit. Arizona zoning boards evaluate special exceptions case by case. Specific lien, a lien attaching to a specific property rather than all assets of the debtor. Mortgages and mechanics liens are common Arizona examples. Specific performance, a court-ordered remedy compelling a party to perform contractual obligations. Arizona buyers often seek specific performance in real estate disputes due to property uniqueness. Statute of frauds, a law requiring certain contracts, including real estate contracts and listings, to be in writing to be enforceable. Arizona strictly enforces this statute. Statute of limitations, a law limiting the time within which legal action may be brought. Arizona statutes define limitation periods for contract and property claims. Steering, the illegal practice of directing buyers or tenants toward or away from certain areas based on protected characteristics. Steering violates fair housing laws and is prohibited in Arizona. Stock sale, the transfer of ownership of a corporation by selling stock rather than assets. In real estate contexts, Stock sales transfer both assets and liabilities. Straight-line cost recovery, a depreciation method, spreading deductions evenly over an asset's useful life, commonly used by Arizona property owners for tax purposes. Strict foreclosure, a court proceeding, granting the lender title to property without a sale. Rare in Arizona due to the availability of trustee sales. Subagency, a relationship where cooperating brokers represent the seller through the listing broker. Modern Arizona practice limits subagency in favor of clearer buyer representation. Sublease, a lease arrangement where a tenant transfers part of their lease rights to another while remaining liable to the landlord. Arizona landlords often require written consent for subleases. Subordination, the lowering of lien priority, either voluntarily or by law. Arizona tax liens automatically take priority over other liens. Substantive contact, interaction that moves beyond casual conversation and relates to a transaction. Arizona licensees must disclose agency status at the time of substantive contact. Substitution, the appraisal principle that a buyer will not pay more for a property than for an equally desirable alternative, forms the foundation of the sales comparison approach. Subsurface rights, ownership rights to minerals and materials below the land surface. Subsurface rights may be severed from surface ownership in Arizona. Suit for possession, a legal action taken by a landlord to regain possession of property. Arizona eviction proceedings follow statutory notice and court requirements. Superior lien, a lien with priority over others, most commonly tax liens. Arizona law establishes lien priority through statute and recording order. Supply, the quantity of property available for sale or lease at a given time. Supply levels strongly influence Arizona pricing trends. Surface rights, rights to use and control the land surface. Surface rights may be separated from subsurface or air rights. Survey, a professional measurement of property boundaries and features. Arizona lenders often require surveys to identify encroachments and easements. Survivorship, the right of a surviving joint tenant to automatically acquire the deceased tenant's interest. Common in Arizona, joint tenancy ownership. Syndication, a real estate investment structure where multiple investors pool capital, while sponsors manage the property. Arizona syndications must comply with securities laws. Tax base, the total assessed property value within a taxing jurisdiction. Arizona tax rates are applied to the tax base to generate revenue. Tax certificate, an instrument granting the holder the right to apply for a tax deed after paying delinquent taxes and waiting the statutory period. Tax deed, a deed conveying property sold due to unpaid taxes. Arizona tax deed, sales transfer ownership subject to statutory procedures. Tax district, a governmental entity authorized to levy taxes for specific purposes such as schools or fire protection. Tax sale, a court-authorized sale of property to satisfy unpaid property taxes. Tax shelter, an investment producing deductions or losses that reduce taxable income. Real estate depreciation is a common Arizona tax shelter. Taxable gain, the portion of capital gain subject to tax. Arizona follows federal capital gains treatment. Taxable income, income subject to taxation after allowable deductions. For rental property, taxable income differs from cash flow. Taxable value, assessed value after exemptions are applied. Arizona property taxes are calculated on taxable value. Tenancy, the legal holding of a freehold or leasehold estate. Tenancy in common, co-ownership, where each owner holds an undivided interest without survivorship rights. Common in Arizona investment ownership. Tenancy in severalty, sole ownership of property by one individual or entity. Testate, the condition of dying with a valid will. Arizona probate courts distribute property according to the will. Tier, a horizontal strip of land between two parallels in the rectangular survey system. Timeshare, a shared ownership or use arrangement allowing occupants to use property during designated time periods. Arizona regulates timeshares strictly. Title, legal ownership of real property and the evidence of that ownership. Title, insurance, insurance protecting against loss from title defects. Arizona transactions rely heavily on title insurance for risk management. Title plant, a privately maintained duplicate set of title records used by title companies for efficient searches. Title records, public records documenting property ownership, liens, and conveyances. Title theory, state, a state where lenders hold legal title during the loan term. Arizona is not a title theory state. Torrens system, a title registration system where the certificate itself establishes ownership. Not used in Arizona. Township, a 6-mile square unit containing 36 sections in the rectangular survey system. Trade fixture, business equipment attached to real property but removable by the tenant. Trade fixtures remain personal property in Arizona. Trust, a fiduciary arrangement where a trustee holds legal title for the benefit of beneficiaries. Underwriting, the process of evaluating risk and borrower qualifications for financing. Arizona lenders follow strict underwriting guidelines. Unequal services, providing different services based on protected characteristics. Unequal services violate fair housing laws. Unilateral contract, a contract where only one party makes a promise, such as an option contract. Universal agency, an agency relationship granting broad authority to act on behalf of a principal. Usury, charging interest above legal limits. Arizona usury laws restrict excessive interest rates. Utility, a component of value reflecting usefulness. Properties must meet utility needs to retain value. Vacancy, the amount of unoccupied space in a property or market. Arizona vacancy rates affect rental pricing. Validity, the legal soundness of a contract. Valid contracts are a prerequisite to enforceability. Value, the worth of a property based on utility, demand, scarcity, and desirability. Variance, permission to deviate from zoning requirements due to hardship. Arizona zoning boards grant variances sparingly. Void, without legal force or effect. Void contract, a contract that is invalid from inception and unenforceable. Voidable contract, a contract that may be canceled by the disadvantaged party due to legal disability or misrepresentation. Water rights, legal rights to use or control water associated with land. Arizona recognizes prior appropriation, riparian, and literal doctrines. Will, a legal document directing distribution of property upon death. Yield, the return on an investment expressed as a percentage or dollar amount. Zoning ordinance, a local law regulating land use. Arizona, zoning ordinances govern permitted uses, density, and development standards.